Nestled among the towering peaks of the Himalayas lies a land like no other, Tibet, often called the roof of the world. It's a place where the skies stretch endlessly, where snow-capped mountains meet ancient monasteries, and where the echoes of chants have carried through centuries. Tibet is more than a geographical marvel. It's a living embodiment of resilience, spirituality, and the enduring spirit of humanity. For over 1,000 years, Tibet has been a sanctuary for Buddhist teachings, a place where the wisdom of the Buddha flourished in its own unique form. It became not just a religion but a way of life, shaping the culture, art, and philosophy of the Tibetan people. From the construction of sacred sites like the Potala Palace to the preservation of intricate mandalas, every corner of Tibet whispers the stories of devotion and spiritual pursuit. But this land has also known hardship. Its history is marked by struggles, foreign invasions, internal strife, and the heavy hand of geopolitical forces. Yet, through it all, Tibet has held on to its identity with remarkable tenacity. The spiritual foundation laid by great masters like Padmasambhava and Tsongkhapa has been a guiding light for the Tibetan people, even in the darkest times. Imagine the courage it took for monks and nuns to protect sacred texts during periods of turmoil, knowing they carried not just words but the very essence of their culture. Picture the faces of ordinary Tibetans, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of prayer wheels and the hum of sacred mantras, standing firm against the tides of change. This is the story of Tibetan history, not just a tale of survival, but of spiritual triumph. Today, Tibet remains a symbol of hope and endurance. Its teachings of compassion and mindfulness resonate far beyond its borders, reminding the world of the power of inner peace in the face of external chaos. As we reflect on Tibet's incredible journey, we're reminded of the universal lessons it offers: the strength to preserve what matters most, the courage to adapt without losing oneself, and the wisdom to seek harmony amid conflict. Tibetan history is not just about the past. It's a living, breathing narrative that continues to inspire. It's a call to look inward, to find resilience within ourselves, and to honor the sacred in our everyday lives. So join us as we dive deeper into this remarkable story, a story that transcends borders, speaks to the soul, and invites us to discover what it truly means to endure. To truly understand Tibet's survival, we must journey back to its ancient beginnings, to a time when history and myth intertwined. Tibetan history is said to have started with a tale, a divine union between a monkey and an ogress. This wasn't just a fanciful story. It was a profound symbol of balance, merging human nature with spiritual purpose. From this union, the Tibetan people were born, carrying within them the seeds of a civilization deeply connected to the natural and the divine. As this civilization grew, it found its guiding light in Buddhism. Introduced in the 7th century, Buddhism wasn't just adopted, it transformed Tibet. It wasn't merely a religion, it became the very essence of Tibetan identity. The monasteries that dotted the rugged landscape were more than places of worship. They were schools of thought, centers of art, and repositories of wisdom. These monasteries held sacred texts, philosophical debates, and the spiritual heartbeat of a people who sought harmony above all else. The great masters, from Padmasambhava, who brought Tantric Buddhism to Tibet, to Tsongkhapa, who founded the Gelug school, shaped the spiritual fabric of the land. Their teachings instilled values of compassion, mindfulness, and resilience, anchoring Tibetans in principles that would guide them through both prosperity and peril. But Tibet's path was never easy. The centuries brought waves of challenges, foreign invasions, internal struggles, and the pressures of powerful empires that surrounded it. Despite these trials, the spiritual foundation laid by Buddhism proved unshakable. It gave the Tibetan people a compass, a way to navigate the storms of history without losing themselves. Imagine the courage it took to preserve these teachings during times of upheaval. Monks risked everything to protect sacred texts and pass down oral traditions, understanding that they weren't just safeguarding knowledge but the soul of their culture. Ordinary people, too, played their part, keeping their faith alive through prayer, pilgrimage, and unwavering devotion. This resilience, this ability to root themselves in spiritual truths, is what allowed Tibet to endure. And it's here that we find a lesson for our own lives. In a world that often feels chaotic, Tibet's story reminds us to anchor ourselves in principles that transcend time. Compassion, wisdom, and a sense of inner peace. These are the teachings that not only preserve Tibet but can guide us today. Tibetan history is more than an account of the past. It's a living inspiration. It speaks to the strength that comes from staying true to one's values, the courage to hold on to what matters, and the power of spirituality to endure against all odds. As we reflect on this remarkable journey, we're reminded that the lessons of Tibet are not confined to the Himalayas. They are universal, offering hope and guidance to us all. From the 7th to the 9th centuries, Tibet stood as a formidable power under the Yarlung Dynasty, reaching the zenith of its influence. This era, often referred to as Tibet's Golden Age, was defined by both military might and visionary leadership. At its helm were kings like Songtsen Gampo, a ruler not just of immense strategic acumen, but of profound foresight. Under his command, Tibetan warriors expanded the empire across Central Asia, cementing Tibet as a dominant force in the region. Yet, Songtsen Gampo's greatness wasn't solely measured by his conquests. He understood that true power lay not just in the might of an army, but in the unity of a people and the strength of a shared identity. Through strategic marriage alliances with Princess Wencheng of China and Princess Brikuti of Nepal, he laid the foundation for a cultural transformation that would shape Tibet for centuries. These alliances brought more than political stability. They introduced and solidified Buddhism as a central pillar of Tibetan life. Buddhism became more than a belief system. It infused the empire with values of compassion, wisdom, and the pursuit of enlightenment. Monasteries flourished, and Tibet emerged not just as a land of warriors, but as a beacon of spiritual and cultural innovation. The creation of the Tibetan script, inspired by Indian and Chinese influences, allowed for the translation of Buddhist texts, enabling the teachings of the Buddha to take root in Tibetan soil. But as history teaches us, empires rise and fall. By the 9th century, internal divisions and external pressures led to the fragmentation of this once mighty empire. The golden age of the Yarlung dynasty gave way to a period of disunity, as regional powers vied for control. Yet even in its decline, Tibet's cultural and spiritual legacy endured. Buddhism, now deeply woven into the fabric of Tibetan life, became the unifying force that helped preserve the essence of Tibetan identity despite political fragmentation. Here lies a powerful lesson, not just for Tibet but for all nations. Songtsen Gampo's vision reminds us that the pursuit of power must be tempered with the preservation of culture and values. His era stands as a testament to the importance of harmonizing conquest with compassion, strength with wisdom, and ambition with humility. For modern nations, Tibet's story offers profound insights. In an age of rapid change and growing conflict, how do we balance progress with preservation? How do we ensure that the quest for dominance does not erode the very principles that make us who we are? Tibet's history calls us to reflect on these questions, reminding us that true greatness lies not in the expansion of borders, but in the enduring strength of a shared spirit. As we look back on the legacy of the Yarlung dynasty, we are reminded of the timeless values it upheld, values that continue to inspire. It's a story of balance, resilience, and the enduring power of culture, offering lessons that resonate far beyond the peaks of the Himalayas. The 13th century was a pivotal moment in Tibetan history. As the Mongol Empire swept across Asia with unmatched force, many nations crumbled under their military might. Yet Tibet, rather than resisting with swords and shields, chose a different path, one rooted in wisdom and diplomacy. It was a bold and unconventional decision that would shape Tibet's future and preserve its identity. At the heart of this strategy was the Sakya school of Buddhism, led by the revered Sakya Pandita. Understanding the futility of armed resistance against the Mongols, Sakya Pandita initiated dialogue with the empire. What emerged was an extraordinary alliance that came to be known as the patron-priest relationship. In exchange for political protection and relative autonomy, Tibet offered the Mongols what no other kingdom could: spiritual guidance. The Mongols, fierce conquerors with a deep respect for religious authority, found immense value in the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism. The Sakya leaders became their spiritual advisors, and this alliance not only spared Tibet from destruction, but elevated it to a unique position of influence within the Mongol Empire. Tibetan Lamas traveled to the Mongol court, spreading Buddhist teachings and shaping the spiritual life of the empire's rulers. This relationship was more than a political maneuver. It was a profound testament to Tibet's ability to leverage its greatest strength, its culture and spirituality, as a form of power. Unlike conventional forms of dominance measured in military victories or territorial expansion, Tibet demonstrated that influence could be wielded through ideas, values, and wisdom. Even as the Mongol Empire eventually fragmented, the patron-priest relationship left an indelible mark on Tibetan history. It showed the world that power does not always have to be confrontational. It can be collaborative, rooted in mutual respect and shared purpose. For Tibet, it was a triumph of resilience and adaptability, preserving its spiritual traditions and cultural autonomy in the face of overwhelming odds. In today's world, where power is often equated with economic strength or military might, Tibet's approach offers a compelling alternative. It challenges us to rethink what true influence looks like. Can nations, organizations, or even individuals find strength in their cultural heritage and values? Could spiritual and cultural diplomacy become a modern blueprint for soft power? Tibet's history invites us to reflect on these questions. It reminds us that power wielded with wisdom and compassion can endure far longer than power imposed by force. In a world increasingly defined by competition, the Tibetan example shines as a beacon of collaboration and the enduring impact of cultural influence. As we explore this remarkable chapter, we are reminded that history is not just a record of battles and conquests. It is also a tapestry of human ingenuity, where even the smallest nations can leave a profound legacy. Tibet's alliance with the Mongols stands as a timeless lesson, a testament to the enduring power of ideas and the unyielding spirit of a people determined to preserve their identity. By the 17th century, Tibet entered a transformative era marked by the rise of the Dalai Lama as both a spiritual and political leader. It was a time of profound change, as the fifth Dalai Lama, known as the Great Fifth, unified the fragmented regions of Tibet and laid the foundation for a new model of governance, one rooted in the principles of Buddhism. Under the Great Fifth's leadership, Tibet emerged as a cohesive state. He brought together warring factions and established a centralized authority that balanced spiritual wisdom with political pragmatism. The construction of the Potala Palace during this period became a powerful symbol of Tibetan unity and governance. Perched atop Marpo Ri Hill in Lhasa, the palace wasn't just a seat of government. It was a monument to the enduring connection between faith and leadership, a beacon of hope and resilience for the Tibetan people. Yet the path to unification was far from easy. Internal rivalries among noble families and monastic sects often threatened the stability of the Dalai Lama's rule. Externally, the growing influence of the Qing dynasty in China loomed as a constant challenge. The Great Fifth navigated these complexities with a blend of diplomacy, strategic alliances, and spiritual guidance, embodying the delicate balance required to lead a nation rooted in faith while facing the realities of the political world. His reign invites us to consider an intriguing question: can spiritual principles truly guide political decision-making? For the Dalai Lama, governance wasn't about wielding power for its own sake. It was about serving the greater good, informed by the core Buddhist values of compassion, mindfulness, and the pursuit of harmony. Decisions were not merely pragmatic, they were infused with a sense of moral responsibility. However, this model of leadership wasn't without its trials. The dual role of the Dalai Lama, both a spiritual figure revered by millions and a political leader responsible for navigating complex alliances and conflicts, was a delicate balancing act. Critics questioned whether the demands of governance could ever fully align with the ideals of Buddhism. And yet, the Great Fifth's ability to inspire unity and resilience during his time remains a testament to the power of spiritual leadership. For today's leaders, the story of the Great Fifth Dalai Lama offers profound lessons. It challenges the often cynical view of politics as a purely self-serving endeavor. It suggests that leadership guided by values and a genuine commitment to the well-being of others can transcend personal ambition and short-term gains. It reminds us that true authority stems not from the force of command, but from the trust and respect of those being led. As we reflect on this remarkable chapter of Tibetan history, we are reminded of the enduring relevance of these principles. In a world increasingly driven by division and conflict, the Great Fifth's example serves as a powerful reminder of the potential for leadership rooted in wisdom and compassion. His legacy is not just a story of Tibet, it is a timeless lesson on the profound impact of leading with the heart as well as the mind. The 20th century thrust Tibet into the unforgiving currents of modern imperialism, forever altering its course. For centuries, Tibet had managed to maintain a delicate balance of autonomy amid powerful neighbors. But in 1904, that balance was shattered when British forces invaded, driven by strategic interests in the great game of imperial rivalry. This marked the beginning of an era where external powers would challenge Tibet's sovereignty in ways never seen before. The most profound disruption came in 1950. When China annexed Tibet, declaring it an inseparable part of its territory. What followed was a period of profound upheaval for the Tibetan people. The Tibetan government, under increasing pressure, sought ways to navigate this new reality. Resistance erupted, with brave uprisings like the 1959 rebellion in Lhasa, where Tibetans fought to protect their homeland and their culture. But the overwhelming force of the Chinese military left little room for negotiation or compromise. The pivotal moment came in 1959, when the 14th Dalai Lama, Tibet's spiritual and political leader, was forced to flee into exile in India. It was a heartbreaking chapter in Tibetan history, a moment of profound loss. Yet, exile did not silence Tibet. It amplified its voice. From his sanctuary in Dharamshala, the Dalai Lama emerged as a global symbol of peace, compassion, and cultural preservation. He turned the plight of Tibet into a universal cause, advocating for nonviolence and dialogue as the means to resolve even the most entrenched conflicts. The Dalai Lama's leadership in exile was not just about preserving Tibetan culture, it was about keeping the spirit of Tibet alive. He championed initiatives to ensure that Tibetan language, arts, and Buddhist teachings thrived among the diaspora. Through his words and actions, he reminded the world that even in the face of profound adversity, the strength of a culture lies in its ability to adapt and endure. This resilience holds lessons far beyond Tibet. In a world where struggles for identity and autonomy are increasingly common, Tibet's story echoes the challenges faced by countless other communities striving to preserve their heritage amid external pressures. From indigenous peoples fighting for their lands to marginalized nations seeking recognition, the Tibetan experience is a reminder of the power of cultural endurance and the importance of global solidarity. The Dalai Lama's advocacy for peace transcends the boundaries of geography and religion. His message of compassion and interconnectedness speaks to the human spirit, offering hope to those facing oppression. His life's work challenges us to rethink what it means to resist, not through violence or hatred, but through the strength of moral conviction and the power of ideas. As we reflect on this turbulent chapter of Tibetan history, we are reminded that resilience is not just about survival, it is about transformation. Tibet's journey through the 20th century shows us that even when the physical foundations of a culture are threatened, its essence can endure, inspiring generations to come. In this, Tibet's struggle becomes not just its own, but a beacon for all who strive to protect their identity in an ever-changing world. Despite centuries of political upheaval, Tibetan Buddhism has emerged as a global phenomenon, flourishing far beyond the borders of its homeland. Rooted in profound teachings of compassion, mindfulness, and the impermanence of all things, this spiritual tradition has found resonance in an increasingly interconnected world. In doing so, it has become one of Tibet's most enduring legacies. As the Tibetan diaspora spread across the globe, so too did the wisdom of its ancient teachings. The Dalai Lama, as a tireless advocate for these values, played a central role in bringing Tibetan Buddhism to the forefront of global consciousness. Through his gentle charisma and unshakable commitment to nonviolence, he introduced millions to the transformative power of inner peace and the interconnectedness of all beings. These teachings have profoundly influenced various aspects of modern life. In psychology, concepts like mindfulness and meditation, drawn from Tibetan Buddhist practices, have become pillars of mental health therapies, helping individuals manage stress, anxiety, and trauma. In popular culture, Tibetan symbols and philosophies have found their way into films, books, and art, captivating audiences with their depth and universality. Tibetan Buddhism's emphasis on compassion challenges the competitive, individualistic values of materialistic societies, offering a vision of life rooted in kindness and collective well-being. But the true triumph of Tibetan Buddhism lies not in its global popularity, but in its ability to touch the human spirit. At its heart, it is a guide for living with purpose and humility, reminding us of life's fleeting nature and the importance of living in harmony with ourselves and others. These lessons hold particular relevance in today's world, where materialism often overshadows deeper, more meaningful pursuits. Tibetan Buddhism stands as a quiet yet profound counterbalance to this trend, offering wisdom that can guide us toward a more balanced and fulfilling existence. What role does spirituality play in shaping a nation's legacy? For Tibet, it has been everything. Long after political borders have shifted and empires have risen and fallen, the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism continue to inspire and transform. They are a testament to the enduring power of spiritual values to transcend time, geography, and even adversity. Through these teachings, Tibet has left an indelible mark on humanity, not as a political entity, but as a spiritual force. In reflecting on this, we are invited to consider how these values might help us navigate the challenges of our own time. In a world dominated by material desires and fleeting distractions, Tibetan wisdom calls us to slow down, to look inward, and to cultivate a sense of gratitude and compassion. It challenges us to rethink our priorities, to see beyond the surface, and to connect with the deeper truths that unite us all. Tibetan history is a story of resilience and adaptability, but it is also a story of profound generosity, a willingness to share its most cherished wisdom with the world. As we embrace these teachings in our own lives, we honor Tibet's legacy and reaffirm the timeless truth that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in the richness of the human spirit. Tibet's story is one of extraordinary resilience, a testament to a culture that found its strength in its spiritual foundation and adapted to endure the shifting tides of history. From its mythical origins, where the union of a monkey and an ogress symbolized the harmony between human nature and spiritual purpose, to its profound global spiritual influence, Tibet's journey offers lessons that are as timeless as the mountains that surround it. At the heart of Tibet's resilience lies its unwavering commitment to its core values. Through centuries of invasions, political upheaval, and exile, Tibet found refuge not in the material or the transient, but in its spiritual essence. The teachings of compassion, mindfulness, and impermanence have not only sustained Tibet, but also inspired the world, offering a model of how to navigate life's most profound challenges. Tibet's ability to endure is rooted in its adaptability. When empires sought to conquer it, Tibet turned to diplomacy, leveraging its spiritual assets to preserve its autonomy. When the forces of modern imperialism threatened its sovereignty, Tibet responded by ensuring that its culture and values thrived in exile. From the monasteries of Lhasa to the hearts of those who carry Tibetan wisdom across the globe, Tibet has demonstrated that true resilience is not about resisting change, but embracing it with steadfast principles. As we reflect on this journey, it's worth asking how these lessons might apply to our own lives. In times of upheaval, what principles anchor you? What values guide your decisions and give you strength? For Tibet, these anchors have always been compassion, interconnectedness, and an enduring faith in the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity. Tibet's story reminds us that resilience is not just about survival, it's about thriving in the face of uncertainty. It's about finding purpose and meaning even in the most challenging circumstances. In a world that often feels chaotic, Tibet's example calls us to pause, to reconnect with what matters most, and to face life's trials with courage and grace. As we conclude this exploration of Tibetan history, consider the blueprint it offers. Its lessons are not confined to the peaks of the Himalayas. They are universal. They remind us that no matter how turbulent the world becomes, we can find strength in our core values, wisdom in our traditions, and hope in the resilience of the human spirit. So, as you stand at your own crossroads, remember the roof of the world. It is a place where challenges are met with stillness, where hardships give rise to wisdom, and where resilience is not just a word, but a way of life. May the lessons of Tibet inspire you to navigate your journey with the same strength, grace, and enduring spirit.